I'm Marie Harpin, and this is something you should know. And today, to my left, is a very special guest, and we have some great information coming in from Andrea, our new district attorney that's been on the job. This is her 10th month. Can you believe that? It's been 10 months since she was elected to be the first female district attorney for Berkshire County. So we're very fortunate there. So hello, Andrea.
Hi. Hello.
And to my right is someone I've known for a very, very, very long time, my daughter, Marie Harpin.
Hello.
So you're fine today?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yes.
So Andrea, give us a little breakdown of what's been going on for the first 10 months,
10 months.
of your job. Now, something I was very impressed with.
Yeah.
You said when you were campaigning that you were going to look into some of the former cases, and you did. And the first one you did was the Williams College rape case.
Yes.
And that was amazing because it was proven that he did do that, and that was one. But are there any other cases that have been, more or less pushed under the rug that haven't been addressed or not fully addressed?
Well, with that particular case, so that was a sexual assault that occurred between two students at Williams College, and there was an offer made to the defendant prior to my taking office, and it was a plea offer that he could plea and get something called a continuation without a finding, which is not even pleading guilty, and probation. And that was one of the cases that I had in mind when I talked about the fact that in my administration, we were not going to plea sexual assault down to indecent assault and battery. And so what was offered to him was to plea to an indecent assault and battery,
That's
not
right.
even a sexual assault. That was one of the cases that I had in mind. And our ADA took that to trial because we had a victim who wanted to tell her story. And she did an amazing job. And we got a guilty on that, and he was sentenced to 3 years in a house of correction. Looking at other cases, what we found is that uncharged cases, the office did not keep records of uncharged sexual assault cases.
That's rare, isn't it?
Well, in our child abuse unit, there's records kept of investigations. And so since coming into office, I've implemented a policy and a system similar to what we have in our child abuse unit where we keep track of uncharged cases. So it's a process now for us of figuring out what those cases even are. So what we've done is we've contacted the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab to get a list of all of the rape kits that they have in their possession.
Okay.
So we're going to start with that list. And we have an intern. So we have an intern now in one of the projects that she's working on is pulling together all of the, we do have some files of cases that were, I think they were maybe pled down to indecent assault and battery. So we have some files to start with in our office. Our intern is starting to review those. We're working on getting records from the Massachusetts State Police, but it's going to be a process of getting access to the files.
Oh, yes. It isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of time and work to put this forward.
It's actually, it's a big endeavor, and particularly because we have to pull together these files. But I will say that conviction that we got in the Williams College case, I have heard more from people about that conviction than I have heard about anything else. It really meant a lot to a lot of people, and I feel like people who know somebody or experienced a sexual assault and didn't get justice feel that. They feel
Yes.
that they feel somewhat vindicated
That's right.
from just seeing somebody else get
That's right.
justice.
That's
So it means a lot to people. It's important, and we have an amazing chief for our sexual assault unit, Megan Tissanero. She's at a training right now, a domestic violence training. One of the requests that we got from law enforcement was to hold a sexual assault investigation training. So we are planning that for this fall. So that's for law enforcement, and we're having experts from across the country come in to do the training on how to do sexual assault investigations. There'll be a domestic violence element as well. There'll be a sex trafficking element of the training. And that's a request that we had from law enforcement. So, in order to take cases to trial and get convictions, we need great investigations.
That's right.
They're tough cases
That's right.
to investigate, and,
Yes.
and we're taking a collaborative teamwork approach.
And you'll have these people just in that unit for domestic violence, taking care of these situations?
So right now in the office, we have a chief for the unit,
Right.
but we do, people want to try different cases. So we are, working across the office to have people, to be able to do those kind of
Multitasking,
cases.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our chief of our child abuse unit, she wants to do a drug case because that's like stress relief for her, and
Right,
sometimes sometimes the people that do the drug cases, they want the challenge of a victim case. So we're offering, we really want to offer, we want people to have expertise, but we also want people to be
Have
challenged.
a variety of challenges.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think people are happy and just overcome with joy to see that this case was actually just taken to court, because I
yes.
think the victims probably feel as though their voices will be heard. And that's the important thing. I mean, if you're constantly, not trying these cases, then women or men or whoever the victim may not come to the table to want to go through that process. But if they know that they're going to be heard, then they might step up and voice it a little bit more. So
Well,
I
and
think that's wonderful, and help them heal, I think, right?
I think it is important. And I think that it's important to talk about how we define accountability, because these cases are difficult. But in our office, we say that, just sometimes you hold people accountable by charging them. Sometimes you hold people accountable by taking a case to trial. Of course, we want convictions, but we don't necessarily consider it a loss if we don't get a conviction. If we have, if we have a victim who gets to tell their story, we tell the world, this is what this defendant did. There's something to be said for that.
Right,
And
exactly.
We're not just going to take the easy cases to trial. And you lose cases when you take the tough cases. And it's not, I don't mean tough in terms of that we don't believe our victims or that we don't have good evidence. It's just in those kinds of cases, it's often only two people were present, and jurors can have their own ideas about how
the
much
evidence
they
presented,
I mean,
what they believe,
a
yeah,
victim's
right.
testimony is evidence. You're not always going to have DNA evidence,
Right,
so
right.
that's our ethos in the office, and I spend a lot of time praising our assistant district attorneys and our victim advocates for taking cases, and not just for winning, but for taking cases to trial.
Yeah, that's great. And really is
How many
great.
lawyers do you have on your staff?
We have 21 assistant district attorneys
Oh, wow.
right now, and we have a great group. And then we have our victim witness advocates, who they are there to support victims throughout the process, connect victims with services. We have an amazing director for our victim witness advocate program who's got a lot of experience. She's got a lot of connections statewide, so she's really been able to open up a whole new world of services that are available to
That's
victims.
great.
Wow.
And
great.
so there's a Victim Bill of Rights. She's teaching people about the Victim Bill of Rights. So if people who are watching are victims of crime and need support, please contact the district attorney's office, because we're helping people develop safety plans. We can help people get access to compensation funds if you've been a victim of a crime. For people who are out of status, and have immigration issues, we can help
Help those
people
as well. That's
connect to immigration services, because there are protections for victims of crime who don't have legal status.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great to know. And are they located all in Pittsfield? Are there some in North County and South County as well, or are they all centrally in Pittsfield?
So we have advocates in our Northern Berkshire District Court.
Okay.
Our advocate is there every day when court is going on, and then when we're in Southern Berkshire District Court, we have advocates there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you have the same attorneys in North Adams ongoing, or do you bring others in depending on the situations?
Yeah, I mean, it can vary. We've had our ADA Joe Brava has been pretty consistently in Northern Berkshire. And then other people will cycle in and out. But you know, people who are in Northern Berkshire love it. They love it. They love it. They love it. They don't want to leave.
That's right. And
Yeah.
they want
There's
to
a
stay
good
right
group
where they
down
are.
there.
They want to
do.
stay in North Adams.
They do.
But you got a nice group. You got a nice
Yeah,
group of
Krista
girls in there
Avery-
that are working.
Krista Avery,
Yeah.
our longtime administrative assistant in Northern Berkshire District Court, runs a really tight ship.
Yeah.
And we love having her there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, the juvenile court,
Yeah.
are you still doing the juveniles in the district court, or are you just going to move down to the juvenile court that's down in the other area?
Yeah.
Off the parking lot in Center Street.
So the juvenile court is in Pittsfield
Right.
now. So
Right off
that's
North
on
Street.
North Street.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
on North Street. And we've instituted a formal juvenile diversion program.
I saw that. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, so there was a Criminal Justice Reform
Right.
Act that was passed that was, you know, every member of the Berkshire delegation voted for it. It was a bipartisan piece of legislation. Our Republican governor signed off on this, and it mandated that district attorneys have formal juvenile diversion programs. And we were the only county in the state that did not have a formal program run out of a district attorney's office.
But there is now.
There is now,
Right,
and you know, we see this program as an opportunity to provide services to more young people that need them. That's our intention.
So you, instead of necessarily punishing them, you're helping to get them services instead, right? And find the root of the problem instead of, you know, because they're kids, right? I mean, what is the age group up to? 18 or?
So right now, juvenile court is 12 to 18.
Oh, it is
It
18.
is 12
Okay.
to 18. Yes. So
Oh, wait a minute then. Do the ones in North Adams have to go to the court in Pittsfield on North Street for juvenile court? Or are
Yes.
you going to be, you think you'll ever use the court in North Adams? That's the juvenile court over there?
well, it's not. That's up to the trial courts,
Oh,
Oh, okay.
and I don't get to dictate that.
okay. Okay,
So
I thought that fell under you.
yeah, it doesn't. I wish that I could control so many things,
Because that would
Marie.
be such,
but I don't have. I'm not in
that would
charge
be
of that.
such a great
Yeah. I
location
know.
for juveniles to go. It's right here, the building is there.
I know.
You can plug
It's all
it in
set
with
up.
services, and there's services all over North Adams,
Yeah.
just like there is in Pittsfield. And they wouldn't have to travel,
Yeah.
the parents wouldn't have to travel.
Well, I mean, we could. So how our diversion program now, which is a little different from what the juvenile court was doing, because our goal is in appropriate cases to keep kids from ever having to step foot in a courtroom.
That's
and
right.
Okay,
this is
perfect.
based on social science research and
Yep.
data. There's a lot of data behind
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's
that-
something they don't forget. It stays with them for their life, I imagine,
Well,
right?
and it
Yeah,
takes-
because if they don't
it
get the
affects their
right start
identity.
getting out
Yeah.
of it, out of the situation they're in, they're never going to get out. But they need the help to get out.
Yeah.
So they need a service plan.
That's exactly what we're doing. So we've hired a social worker.
Yeah.
So the idea is it's a pre-arraignment program, because once a young person is arraigned, they start to acquire a criminal record.
That's right.
And those records do stay with people for
And
their
they
entire
have
life.
Their
a hard
entire life.
time to get into the service, to get into college. even to get a job.
I mean, when
It's
we
there.
hire people, I mean, we're law enforcement, we see people's juvenile records.
That's
And I
right.
used to do employment law, and there are, if people that work educational institutions, nursing homes, like they have access to juvenile records.
That's right.
Right.
And in some instances, it's really not appropriate for juveniles to have developed a record that's going to stay
Right.
with them for their whole
And
life.
to
So
get-
ours, pre-arraignment.
Yeah, and then
Right.
to see about getting it expunged, to get that off their record so they can get into a college and they can get into the service, is a very hard thing to do.
It is a hard thing to do, yeah. And so we have a social worker. So she does an assessment of the young person to determine if they're appropriate for diversion. So if it's a situation where we feel that they're a danger to the community and we need to be able to act really quickly to protect the young person or to protect the rest of the community,
Right.
they will be arraigned and handled quickly. For juveniles who commit really serious offenses, violent crimes, then they're going to be arraigned and they're going to go through the system the way that they normally would. But a lot of what we see with young people, or we see young people that are dealing with trauma and
Right.
that have substance use issues, untreated mental health issues,
Yeah.
Right,
and so many people that have those kinds of conditions end up in the criminal justice system.
I know it.
And this gives
It's
them the
very sad.
opportunity to not have this on their record, and maybe, after they get the services and, they could go to college, they can go into the service, they can actually, is the financial aid, I believe, they're hindered by financial aid as well if they
it
have
covers
have a
everything.
record.
That's against them if they have some kind of a record in juvenile.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and our hope is that by taking out some of the more punitive aspects of being involved in the criminal justice system will encourage people to take advantage of the services, because what we have found is, our probation department was really fantastic in creating innovative programming, like Barrington Stage, Clark Art, Williams
good.
College has
Yes.
great programming. But what we found is that these programs actually have more capacity. They don't have enough kids participating. So our hope is that by taking some of the stigma from being court involved, we can get
Plug 'em
more
in.
kids
Yeah.
into these
Okay.
programs.
Yeah.
But what's really essential, though, is more mental health services for young people.
Not just mental health services for young people, it's beds to put them in if they need them.
That's right. I mean, we've actually had
That's-
to have.
that's the key.
We've had to have
That's
kids
huge.
committed to the Department of Youth Services just because, and who need a mental health bed,
Yeah.
and there aren't any available.
No, and there never, ever was.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had 2 or 3 beds set aside for North County, we were lucky.
Yeah.
We were lucky. Or else I had to go to Howard Street to get into Springfield.
Yeah.
Is it in Springfield? Yeah,
Yeah.
Howard Street. There was always a waiting list.
There is for everything, and
For-
that is
and
still
and
the
it's
case.
it's so sad that there seems to be money for a lot of other things that aren't important. To me, the beds for this situation for mental health and drug and addiction is the most important thing that we have to worry about for our young people. We have to take care of those kids.
We do. And you can see the effects of the economy and years of being under-resourced.
Yeah.
You can see the effects of that
That's right.
in our schools,
Yes.
in our community.
Yeah.
And so Barbara Ann Malkus, the superintendent
Okay.
for the
North
Northern
Adams,
Berkshire
North Adams,
Schools,
yeah.
she pointed out that by the district attorney's office having a formal program and being sort of a collector of data across
Yep.
the county
And coordinating everything.
can help us with grant funding. So our goal really is that we can use this as a springboard to get more mental health and substance use treatment resources
Yeah,
for our
that would-
county.
that would be
If
good.
that to me is what success looks like
That's
for
right.
this
That's
program.
To get some beds in North County,
Yes.
for someone that's, in rehab. And I know sometimes they go into rehab and then, that program is over, but they still need something else.
A week or 2 doesn't cut it.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't cut it.
They have to have long-term rehabilitation.
Yes,
And they got to have a program that's set up for them for a long-term treatment.
yep.
And if they don't have that, they're just going to be coming back. It's going to be a swinging door.
That's it. I mean, we are putting a lot of resources into the criminal justice system, but we know that, about the recidivism rates. We know that it has not been money well spent.
No.
Because going to jail is not therapeutic. And jail is appropriate for people that are dangerous. And believe me, my office is very aggressive about sending people who are dangerous to jail, but it is not rehabilitation.
No.
Right, it's totally
It's not the
different.
collect-all.
I had an opportunity. There's a nonprofit that hosted a conference for myself and district attorneys across the country to go to Portugal.
Didn't
That's
you go
right.
to,
I
you
saw
went,
you went
didn't
to
you?
Portugal.
I did.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and studied their approach to substance use treatment because in the early 90s, Portugal, this is the stat, 1% of the population was addicted to, I think it might have been IV drugs.
Okay.
And they had a bad situation where there was like an open air drug market and their rates of the kind of diseases that are associated with IV drug use were very high. Well, do you know the percentage of people in Berkshire County who are addicted to substances?
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
6%.
Is it 6%?
6%. It's the highest percentage
Is that all
across
of
the
Berkshire
state.
County or just,
It's all of Berkshire County. So, I mean, we're in a crisis. We need a new approach. And the big thing about Portugal is they have an amazing healthcare system where people have access to healthcare. So possession for drugs have been decriminalized. That's just possession. It's not legal.
Right.
It's decriminalized so that there's a civil process that people who are possessing drugs go through, which is designed to encourage people to get treatment. But they have things like a mobile methadone van that I visited. And there's a doctor there, there's a nurse there, there's like access to treatment and housing and other kinds of services, and people can get their methadone. I went to a mobile safe consumption site. These are very controversial.
Yes.
But Dr. Jennifer Michaels describes this like going to the grocery store. You go to the grocery store to get a loaf of bread, and you come out with an entire bag of groceries. So somebody goes to a safe consumption site to have a safe place to inject their IV drugs, but they come out with, here is a referral to a doctor or a mental health professional or a substance use or housing.
Okay.
And it's a harm reduction approach. That's what they're doing in Portugal. It was really, really interesting to see.
And it reduced their rate.
Oh yeah, it was a
tremendously?
tremendous success
Okay.
story. And the big question is, why hasn't everybody else followed suit?
That's right.
Because it's been very successful. And what I learned recently is that because of the federal laws, it's very difficult for doctors to prescribe methadone. They can prescribe for certain illnesses, but prescribing for addiction is a higher barrier. We cannot have mobile methadone vans because federal law prohibits it.
Yeah.
So there's a jail in Franklin County was the first jail that was approved to write prescriptions for methadone.
Okay.
And
is this in the state or the
Yeah,
country?
I think it's in the state.
In the
It
state,
might be
okay.
in the country.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay.
But I heard the doctor she's the medical director there, Dr. Ruth Potey, and she just talks about the kinds of hoops that they had to jump through to get this approval has been just unbelievable.
Right.
And she's the one who kind of taught me about the federal law and how it's interfering
so
with our ability to provide good treatment.
that's so unnecessary to have to jump through all these hoops to get services that you want to provide for your people.
Well,
It's really a sad situation when that happens.
And when I was in Portugal, we met with doctors, we met with legislators, police officers, social workers. We really looked at like every aspect of this policy. And something that I ask the prosecutors and the judges and the police officers are, what do you do about the crimes that are considered, I would say, violent crimes that are fueled by substance use disorder, like breaking into people's houses,
Right.
you know, stealing, those kinds of things, because we have a lot of that
Yes,
in
that
district
does
court.
happen. Yeah, it happens. a lot, yeah.
And they said, we don't have that. And they don't have that because they provide treatment to people that need it. And people don't have that kind of desperation because they're receiving treatment. It was really eye-opening.
So the services are
had to be.
there when they need them or when they want them, so they don't have to look for something. They're not looking elsewhere.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and the police officers have found, and I did it like a ride-along with these Portuguese police officers
yeah.
in Lisbon, and they have found that they're able, because they're not out arresting people for possessing drugs, they're able to build relationships and to have much better communication.
That's what's needed.
And they have much better solve rates for their like serious trafficking
Yep.
crimes. And they're very aggressive in enforcing the trafficking laws. We were there and they brought in
wow.
10 kilos of cocaine from
Wow.
the airport.
From
I've never
trafficking.
seen so many drugs in my life.
Must have been a task.
It was, yeah. And they tested it right in front of us. But they're still doing. They could have been the guys in the Berkshire County Crime Task Force that are above my office.
right,
You
doing the
know,
same
they do wiretaps. They do control. They do confidential buys.
Yes.
They do surveillance. They do all that.
They do
stuff.
everything. And
They
that's a
do everything.
countywide task force.
Our task force is
Your
countywide.
drug tent is
Yeah.
countywide.
Yeah, we don't have to choose one or the other. We can be aggressive in, investigating trafficking
I know it.
and prosecuting people and also providing treatment.
Right, right. It's not one or the other. You could actually do both.
Yeah.
You could provide both, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, we have 1 minute and 23
Oh my
seconds.
God, that went by so fast. We had to
We
talk
should
about-
have done an hour.
And I was just
huh?
going,
both
to say,
have the book.
we didn't
We
get
both
much
have the
on
book.
domestic violence. Well, so take your minute and 12 seconds
ahead.
and do your thing with your book.
So this book turns what I would say are pretty retrograde notions about domestic violence, and that victims of domestic violence and survivors are people who just are beyond help because they just keep going back to their abusers. It just turns
Right.
that idea on its head, and it offers a roadmap for communities to implement real changes to protect people from violence.
That's right.
And,
Yes.
and it looks like if somebody was going around the grocery store strangling people, hitting people, like we would be in an outrage. And
That's
because
right.
these things are happening
That's
in private
right.
homes,
Yeah.
it's like nobody wants to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's
And-
happening silently, yes.
Yep.
So we do have this book, and it's going to be a community read, right?
Yep.
We're asking people to read the book and find out about domestic violence. It is What We Don't Know About Domestic Violence Can Kill Us, and there are books available at the North Adams Public Library, so you can get them right at the library.
Or you can call Andrea's office.
Call my office.
We got 2 seconds left. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm sorry we have to cut Andrea off with all this information, but I promise we will have her back, because we didn't even touch on the domestic violence end of it. So Andrea, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon again.